This video is brought to you by tblocks.com, officially licensed geek and gamer shirts and gear delivered directly to your mailbox for only $9.99 US a month. Click the annotation or use the link in the description and enter the code ThatGeekyGamer for 15% off your first month. Everyone's favorite battling critters are back, but this time they've decided to do things a bit differently. In what at least can be called a rather interesting and or bold move, they've decided to take a page out of Tekken's playbook, but can Pokke Tournament really compete with the more established tournament fighters? Let's start with the basics. Pokke Tournament is, as mentioned, a one-on-one fighting game in the vein of games like Tekken and Street Fighter, but it doesn't just replace Ryu and Ken with Pikachu and Machamp and call it a day. Instead, it implements a deceptively simple but really rather complicated and actually somewhat confusing battle system. Basically, each fight consists of two phases, the field phase and the duel phase. During the field phase, each Pokemon can move around the stage freely in full 3D, putting the focus more on ranged attacks. In the duel phase, movement is restricted to a more traditional 2D plane, shifting the emphasis more to combos and close-ranged attacks. During battle, the combatants go back and forth between these two phases by landing certain attacks that switches the fight from one to the other. The attacks basically consist of normal attacks, grab attacks, and counter attacks that all form the so-called attack triangle. In essence, normal attacks work against grabs, which are effective against counters, which are good against normal attacks. Each fighter also have a so-called synergy gauge that fills up as they land attacks or receive damage. Once this meter is full, the temporary Synergy Burst mode can be activated, in which strength and defense are increased. While Synergy Burst is activated, a special extra strong Synergy Burst attack can also be used, which will often switch the tide of or outright end the battle. In addition to all of that, each fighter also gets to select a support Pokemon at the start of each round. These can be used as soon as the support gauge has filled up, and they come in three main varieties. The attack Pokemon attacks the opponent, the disrupt Pokemon restricts the opponent's abilities, and the enhanced Pokemon provide power-ups and protection. Finally, each fighter can also be granted certain so-called chair effects. These are given to you by your advisor Nia and can do anything from partially or fully refill your synergy and or support gauges to absolutely nothing at all. When and how these effects are granted all depends on your selected chair skill, which are all unlocked at various points throughout the single-player campaign. Yes, if you were wondering, this game does have a single-player /story mode, and it's a pretty decent one at that. It tells the story of how you, a self-named up-and-coming Pokemon battle trainer and your selected Pokemon, battles your way through the so-called Ferrum League. Okay, so it's not exactly a Shakespearean tale or anything, but it's serviceable and there is a bit more to it as well. You see, while you're making your way through the league, you'll occasionally get ambushed by the mysterious Shadow Mewtwo and an equally mysterious Robed Girl. You're told that these two have started randomly popping up and attacking battle trainers recently, and as the game progresses, you'll discover why as you try to save the world. Or at least, the Ferrum League. The Ferrum League itself consists of 5 separate leagues, starting with the Green League for beginners and ending with the Iron League for masters. Each of these leagues have 3 main parts: the league matches, the tournament, and the promotion test. In the league matches, you go through 5 battles at a time, at the end of which your rank will increase depending on how many fights you won. Basically, you'll have to go through quite a few of these matches in order to reach a high enough rank to be allowed into the tournament. The tournament pits the 8 highest ranked trainers of the league against each other in a series of knockout fights. In order to win and become the league champion, you'll have to win 3 fights in a row, lose one and you'll be knocked out and have to try again. After becoming the league champion, you'll get the opportunity to face off against the league master in the promotion test. If you win, you'll be promoted to the next rank and be allowed to enter the next league, where this whole process will start all over again. While this all works as well as can be expected, I guess, I have to admit that it does become rather repetitive and actually somewhat boring after a while. Sure, seeing your rank go up is always nice, and the fights are usually pretty fun, but after experiencing pretty much the exact same fight for the gajillionth time in a row, it kind of loses its appeal. This certainly isn't helped by the fact that the first couple of leagues in particular are a complete cakewalk. I'm not kidding, I literally kept a 100% win rate until I reached the semi-finals of the Blue League's tournament, and I only lost then because I wasn't really concentrating. And because I suck. Seriously though, the fact that a relative newbie and seriously shit player like me can make it this far without even breaking a sweat is pretty lame. Sure, the difficulty does kick up from the 3rd Red League onwards, but by that point, you've probably leveled up your Pokemon a fair bit, lessening the amount of challenge you'll actually experience anyway. Oh, that's right, I forgot to mention the whole leveling thing earlier, didn't I? Well, after each battle, you'll be given a certain amount of skill points that can be used to upgrade your Pokemon stats, giving them more strength and defense power, increasing the time the Synergy Burst lasts, and or making the support Pokemon more effective. Personally, I think this leveling system is a pretty neat addition that adds just the tiniest bit more depth to the experience. Sure, it's not completely necessary, and I admit that I still don't quite get exactly what determines if a battle is a 5-star or a 3-star fight, but it is a decent way of incentivizing you to keep going, and a good way to increase your chances when necessary. In any case, although the Ferrum League is where the bulk of the single-player game takes place, there are a few other modes you can and or should try out as well. First, there's the single battle mode, where you can play single, casual matches against a CPU opponent. Nothing special or all that interesting, but a decent mode if you want to grind for skill points and or train your abilities. Then we have the practice mode, which is fairly self-explanatory, but it might be a bit more important than you think. You see, this is also where you find the tutorial, which I would say is absolutely vital to go through. Sure, you can probably figure out some of the intricacies of this game on your own, but I highly doubt you'll be very successful if you ignore this mode. In addition to that, you have the My Town mode, where you can check your statistics, change various settings, and purchase a shit ton of various clothing, accessories, and hairdos to customize your avatar with. That's right, you have an avatar you can customize with all sorts of unlockable goodies that can be purchased using so-called Pokke Gold earned by going through battles. As incentivizing and fun as this may or may not be, I have to say, I find this to be an addition that is 100% pointless. Oh sure, even I ended up buying quite a few of these things, and I'll probably end up buying even more, but these are all just cosmetic changes to an avatar you barely see or use anyway. Sure, it is nice to have the options and varieties on offer here, and at least it's not tied to some bullshit microtransaction system, but still, I'd prefer some actually useful unlockables instead. This is also where you can change your selected main and support Pokemon, as well as various settings for your advisor Nia, like her chair skill, outfit, and the rate at which she gives advice. Yeah, that's basically what Nia does. She provides advice, hints, and information as you make your way through the game. Unfortunately, she's pretty damn annoying, and her voice acting is terrible. That's right, Nia and a few other characters you run into actually have voice actors, and most, if not all of them, are absolutely dreadful. No, I didn't expect this game to have the most brilliant performances, but this is just sad. I honestly got so annoyed by the English voices that I absolutely had to change them to the Japanese voices, which thankfully are a teeny bit better. Anyway, in addition to the single player stuff, the game obviously supports multiplayer gaming as well, and not just online either. There is a local multiplayer mode, but it isn't completely brilliant. Oh, it works, but for some reason they decided to force one player to use the gamepad, which isn't that bad in and of itself, but that player also has to use the gamepad to get a good view of the fight. Yeah, for some unknown and baffling reason, they decided to lock the camera on the TV to that of the second player, making it pretty confusing and borderline impossible for player 1 to keep track of what's going on without focusing on the gamepad. No, this isn't the worst solution in the world, I guess, but it's just so weird. Seriously, why did they do this? The online component is pretty decent though. As you'd expect, it consists of ranked matches where you compete for online supremacy, and friendly matches where you just fight for fun. In friendly matches, you can also use so-called versus codes in order to compete against your friends, otherwise the matchups are randomly selected. It's also worth noting that quitting in the middle of a battle is not considered very nice, and you'll incur a penalty whenever you do so. Whether or not this affects you when and if you get disconnected, I don't know, as that has yet to happen to me. Overall though, the online section seems to work rather well, even if it is a bit light on modes and such. Still, could certainly be worse. All in all, this game works pretty damn well. Oh, the lineup of available characters is pretty pathetic, and it does become rather repetitive after a while, but it's still really enjoyable, fast-paced and fun, and at least it has some worthwhile offline content. Personally, I would have preferred to have multiple storylines tied to each Pokemon instead of just one tied to your avatar, but that's really a pretty minor complaint. The storyline we do get and the various modes and unlockables are more than enough to keep you entertained for quite a while, even if you exclude the online portion, and there may very well be plenty more content in the future. If you're looking for a solid, fun, and surprisingly complex tournament fighter, either for casual or competitive play, this is a pretty safe bet. No, it's not perfect, far from it in fact, but most of its flaws are relatively minor and or insignificant, so ultimately, I would highly recommend giving this game a chance. I'm pretty sure you won't regret it.